in speaking in tongues, no man understandeth. Remember? The mind is what? What's the word used in Corinthians? It's unfruitful. So, when you speak in tongues, it is this which is edified in you. The Spirit in you is edified, built up. But what about your mind? It is not. But now suppose you're in a believers' meeting. The moment you have a message from God or for God to the people, at that moment, the very moment you speak, God puts these words in your mind, and then you speak out that word in English in this group, and its interpretation. That's why that great principle set down on page 23 is just what I've illustrated on the board. God's Spirit teaches His creation in you, which is now your spirit. Understand? And your spirit teaches your mind, because the man of body and soul has a mind. Then it becomes manifested in the senses realm as you what? Act. That is the key. Now suppose it won't happen this way, but just suppose it could happen this way. Well, it just doesn't happen. But let's say that you could speak in tongues and have 10 words in your mind. You don't give those 10 words, I would never have the interpretation. I'd never be edified, right? Now, I'm confident of this, that in a believer's meeting, whenever somebody speaks in tongues, that person will always have at least one word in their mind when they're through speaking, which will be the interpretation. Not one word, the whole interpretation, but that is the interpretation. And so, if that person will give that one word, then God has the responsibility to have what up there? The second word, the third word, the fourth word, the fifth word. This is why I tell my people, when you're new in this and you're first beginning to walk, give your interpretation like a house afire. Boy, just give it as fast as you can give it, because the faster you give it, the less time you give the old devil to get in your thought pattern and say, well, now, did you make that up, or where'd you get that from? This is all involved. So, give it fast. Sometimes you may have 3 words, that's all you got. And people say, well, I haven't got anything. Well, they're not telling the truth. They got what? Boy, and then if you haven't got anything, somebody's lying. Look, if you got 1 word, could you say you haven't got anything? You know how you get more? Speak the one. The simplest illustration I know is a faucet in a house. You can't get the second drop of water until you accept the first. I don't care what kind of faucet you got. The second drip won't come until the first one comes. So, you take the first word, give it, the second word will be there. The third word will be there. Why do you want God to give you 10 words when you won't even have the believing faith to give the first one? See how simple this all becomes? It is so simple that the church has missed it a lifetime, because they were waiting for something to push them, you know. Like they say, well, if it's of God, God will push me. He'll force me. God never forces. God never pushes. He puts it in there. It's there just as plain as day. You give out 1 word, 2 words, 3 words, and as you give out, He gives it to you, your spirit. Your spirit is His spirit in you. You are part mind. His spirit teaches your mind. You act, it comes into manifestation. Now, by the way, this is how all the manifestations operate. They operate the same way. Same way. Prophecy, word of knowledge, word of wisdom, discerning of spirits, all those information revelations operate the same way. He tells your spirit tells your mind. Even if it's a picture in Revelation, if it's a picture, it'll still relate itself to your mind. And God will always give in the light of your understanding and your experience. For instance, if he's got a man who is, let's say, a great athlete or interest in athletics, and he really knows the field of athletics, God may symbolize it to him in a picture that deals with athletics. Here's a farmer. God symbolizes it to him in the terms of his farm or something he knows real well. God always gives you the information in the capacity of your understanding. Always. Never fails. Now, on page 23, the manifestation of speaking in tongues. What it is not. It is not gibberish or foolishness. Why? Because no language is gibberish or foolishness. Although to the mind of your senses, the language of one people may sound odd in the ears of the people of a different language or culture. You know, if you don't understand German, and if I speak German to you, then to your senses' ears, that German would sound like gibberish or foolishness. But it isn't gibberish or foolishness, is it? So it is in speaking in tongues. When you speak in tongues, when you hear yourself speak, you may say, boy, that sounds funny. But no language is ever funny. No language is ever gibberish or foolishness. Now, there are people in here who do understand German. There are other people that don't. Now, for you people who don't, for instance, if I speak in German, ik kan ook Duits kriegen. Und wenn ich Deutsch kriege, dann kannst du das auch nicht verstehen, wenn du nicht Deutsch kriegen kannst. That's almost, got stuck almost on my German. See? All right, now to your senses' ears, you people that do not understand German, that sounded sort of funny, didn't it? Did it sound real fast to you or slow? See? This is just like tongues. This is why no language is ever gibberish or foolishness. That's why in 1 Corinthians 13:1 we read last night that though I speak with the tongues of what? Men and of angels. Therefore, every time someone speaks in a tongue, it will always be the tongues of men or of what? And it's never foolishness, never gibberish. It is a tongue. Whenever you speak in tongues, that language you speak will always be perfectly enunciated. The pronunciation of your words will always be perfect. The emphasis or the accent of the words will always be perfect. Never fails. Never fails. And of course, in this field, I not only know the word, God says, but we've had the practical experience of people, for instance, speaking in French who knew absolutely no French at all. But when they spoke in a tongue, they spoke in French. And another person in that auditorium understood French, had taught it for years. And there was that person speaking in tongues for the first time, and her enunciation was perfect. It was better than you could learn it in most of the schools. It was just like that person being right from France itself. Same thing we experienced in High German in a class in California. That woman couldn't speak any more High German than that chair can. And yet when she was filled with the Holy Spirit and she started speaking in tongues, she spoke in High German. And her High German was just as fluent, maybe fluid too, just as fluent, and the emphasis was just tremendous. But the language comes from whom? And God isn't what? Stupid. Therefore, when He gives us these things, if we just relax, get quiet, move our lips, our throats, our tongues, make the sounds, don't squeeze it. You know, when you want to speak English, you can't squeeze it. See, if I squeeze it, I don't speak too good. Likewise in tongues. If you squeeze it, you don't speak that language to it. So if you just relax yourself. Just let go and let the greatness of God's power be in you, and you speak it out. The words you speak will always be pronounced perfectly. The enunciation will be perfect. The emphasis will be perfect. And you'll be speaking the wonderful works of God. Tongues of men or of what? That's it.